Are underway. Thousands of families and survivors of the 28 September twin disasters are putting up new structures after being displaced by the natural disasters. South Africa's NGO Gift of the Givers has distributed food parcels to more than 200 families. Our SABC colleague Njanji Chauke is at one of the camps in Palu. On the agenda, we now cross live to him at the epicenter of last week's quake. Njanji, a very good morning to you. What's the latest there? Any aftershocks experienced today?
Good afternoon, Desiree. It's just after 5 o'clock here in Palu, Indonesia. We had a very early morning start today as we accompanied Gift of the Givers volunteers. We first started at one of the warehouses where their supplies have been kept. The stuff was loaded into a big truck. We then proceeded to this point here where they are currently finalizing the process of erecting structures. Earlier on, the process of distributing aid as well as giving food parcels to families got underway. There was a large turnout. More than 200 families at least were handed food parcels by these members of Gift of the Givers. As you can see behind me, if I can move out of shot a bit, you can see some of the volunteers from South Africa busy with the process of building shelter for these people that have been displaced by that twin disaster on the 28th of September. Many people, and this country in particular, still reeling from that twin disaster. An hour ago, we visited the Red Crescent as well, where we saw some of the survivors of the disaster, Desiree.
Njanji, these are temporary structures. What is government saying about bringing the people's lives back to normalcy?
Yes, it is a very difficult time for the government of Indonesia at the moment. As you know that there's also an election coming up next year. So this earthquake and subsequent tsunami really happened at a very bad time. Some people also alleging that, you know, the disaster is now being used for political reasons. For now, what we are told is that people that have been displaced are being put up these temporary structures, and going forward there will probably be a budget allocated where people will be built proper structures. But also joining me now, I've been moving around the area with Dr. Yaqub Vahed of Gift of the Givers. As you know, he's based up in Dr. Yaqub Vahed, can you just tell us about what you have seen since this morning in this area? Which spots have you visited, and what is your assessment?
Well, from this morning when we started, firstly we started with humanitarian aid. You know, in any disaster mission, it's basically divided into three parts. One is search and rescue, the other is humanitarian aid, and the last is medical assistance. And from the time we have arrived here, we haven't been able to do search and rescue because of bureaucratic red tape. And now it's almost 12 days past the event, so we have left that, and our search and rescue team is busy building the tents that you see behind us. And we felt that that was a bigger need for the moment, so the challenges change from time to time, and we try to rise up to the challenge. Secondly, we ordered or distributed a whole lot of food today. To be a bit more exact, it was about 7,500 kilograms of rice, about 3,500 bottles of water, about 12,000 packs of noodles, and this was just enough for about 300 families. And it's actually sad to see how people have to survive, and this seems to be going to be a long-term thing for the families. So we decided to put up these makeshift tents or structures in a slightly more solid form than what is available to them. Usually they use bamboo and tarpaulin, and we have sort of procured the proper timber and nails, and our team has actually, most of them are rescue people, but they all become carpenters today and doing a very good job actually. After that we went to the Indonesian Red Crescent, and because they are a local organization, they are already up and running from the second day after the tsunami, and we were very impressed by the structure that they have with all the facilities. They're even busy building up a theater at the moment. This is all makeshift, and they're seeing up to between 150 to 200 patients a day. So we've spoken to them, and we will be assisting them or partnering with them from tomorrow, and hopefully our the medical component of our team will have a bit more work to do from tomorrow than the previous days. And our organization is probably, we are busy assessing at the moment, and we're going to try to help them set up this theater, because they are going to be situated at that spot for about another 2 months. And
And then what is the most critical need? You've been to some of these places in terms of the injured, the survivors of the disaster. I mean, as a doctor, what can you say?
What is sad is that there are many people that have had major injuries from the earthquake, fractures, open wounds, dislocated limbs, and they are just sitting at home or presenting themselves to the clinic only now. Most of them who are in this situation can't walk or can't use their arms, and some of them are very small children, some are very old people. And it's unfortunate that they can't get the care, because the hospitals, out of the 3 hospitals, one has been totally destroyed. The other 2 hospitals, from what we hear, that only about 10% of the staff have returned to work. So things are moving at a very slow pace. And what is also happening here, there's a big disconnect between what we see on the ground and what we hear or what we get from the officials. So the number of dead and missing, from what we hear from the people, it seems to be much more than what we get officially. In the same way, the number of casualties or the challenges themselves, they seem to be downplayed by the officials. But when we go out into the field and into the camps, you see people that are really, some of the basic needs and necessities they can't fulfill. I mean, what is basic to us in this situation is like food, water, shelter, they don't have. And that's what we felt, that as a humanitarian organization, we shouldn't focus only on the medical needs, but rather on an all-round need to try and make the people comfortable.
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Yaqub Vahed. There you have it from the doctor. Another issue that we've heard is that some of the people are quite scared to go to the hospitals because they are worried that the buildings will still collapse on them. So they prefer to go to some of these makeshift clinics and hospitals. We also understand that there's a very big need for water. So since this morning, a gift of the givers, one of the things that they've been doing was to distribute water. As you know, that this area is very hot. It can go up to about 39, 40 degrees Celsius. So it's very hot and humid. So there's a very big need for water, Desiree.
Njanji Chauke, they're coming to us from Palu in Indonesia, the site of that twin disaster on the 28th of September. Now, another story we've been following this morning. The Social Security Agency workers affiliated